down the street. I was so ate up with myself and so full of ego that one night I pulled down this dark alleyway. You got to remember, this was, at this time, it was about 1994. There was no GPS. There were few officers on the street. If you didn't tell dispatch where you were, no one knew where you were. And at the time, we didn't have a lot of officers on the street. It might have been 3 officers per 50-mile radius. And so I went out down this alleyway to entertain myself, to be honest, and see people run, because that's how full of pride I was. And when I pulled down this dark alleyway, I didn't go out on the radio. Nobody knew where I was or what I was doing. Well, I saw 3 guys sitting over by this Section 8 housing project, and they were sitting on an AC unit. And they saw me, and I saw them, but the difference is they didn't run. And so I took that as an offense. I took that as a challenge. How dare you not run from me? I'm the big bad police. So I pull over, I get out of my car. Again, no one knows where I am. It's about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I approach these 3 young guys sitting on the side of this wrought iron fence. And I asked them, do you not know who I am? And one of them spoke up and said, yeah, we know exactly who you are. I said, well, if you knew who I was, then you'd be running by now. And the other one said to me, well, we know who you are, but we also know that if you didn't have that badge and that gun, you wouldn't be all of what everybody claims you are. I said, really? Is that what you think? So at that time, I took my gun out of my holster and I sat it on the AC unit. I took my badge off of my shirt and I set it next to the gun. And I backed up and I said, no badge, no gun. Here I am. You want to find out whether I am what you say I'm not? They didn't do anything. In fact, they said, man, you tripping. You must be crazy. I said, that's right, I am crazy. I said, tonight I'm gonna let you make it because it's too late in the night and I don't feel like doing all this paperwork. But tomorrow when I come through here, if you don't run, it's gonna be a different story. They took me up on it. I put my gun back in my holster, badge back on my shirt, went patrolling the rest of the shift, thinking I had done something just so phenomenal. Oh man, I am the man. It wasn't until years later that God revealed to me that was one of the stupidest things I could have ever done. My life could have ended that very night. Not only could those 3 have jumped me and done something, not only did I know if they had something, but it could have been some more people around the corner. And I just didn't know. So I go to patrol in this neighborhood and my ego is still kicked in and I'm still making these arrests. I'm still arresting 3 and 4 people at one time by myself. Nobody can tell me that I'm not the man. Over the course of time, I began to get hardened in my heart. And I used to say things like, man, they need to just burn this block up. Wouldn't nobody miss them? They need to burn this block up with fire. So years go on down the road. I continue to patrol that area. I began to move around to different areas. And while I'm still working with the sheriff's department, still doing what I was doing, still making it all about me, God began to speak to me. And in his sovereign and mysterious humor, he decided to call me to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I asked him many a times, are you sure you want to call me? Not only was it a surprise to me, but it was a surprise to most people that I had worked it over the course of the years. But eventually I gave into that call. Now in my mind, calling to preach, I had these big pretty pews in mind and I had stained glass windows in mind and I can wear some nice suits on Sunday. But again, with that humor of God's, when he called me to preach, after I surrendered to the calling, he ended up sending me under the tutelage and mentorship of a pastor who ran a homeless ministry in the middle of Roots Park, which is a park in downtown Houston, which is full of drug addicts, prostitutes, violence, and any other thing you can think of. Now, this pastor every Sunday would go to this park and he would feed these people great meals that he would prepare by himself. And he would feed them sandwiches before, and then we would preach the word, and then he would feed them the great meal. But during the preaching, somebody might be having sex over on that corner. Somebody might be fighting over there. People running back and forth, gambling, shooting up, which is why I can preach anywhere indoors today. It doesn't faze me, because if you could preach in that atmosphere, you could preach anywhere. But all the while I was preaching, I was also packing. And when the food would be served, I would see the people complaining about what the pastor was feeding them. Man, we had this same stuff last week. When are you going to get something new on the menu? And I would get furious. And I would check, man, how you going to be mad because you eating something that you ate last week when if he wasn't here, you wouldn't eat it all. And my pastor would get mad at me. And he said, no, Reverend, you need to watch yourself. He said, these are not your people. These are God's people. It's not for you to determine how they react. All you need to be concerned about is what we're here for, and that's to serve. Well, that blew my mind. My heart was just that callous. If you can't say thank you, I'm not going to fool with you. And he would tell me again, look, I don't need the policeman. I need the preacher. So over the course of time and watching him serve and watching these things unfold as they were, God began to soften my heart. And I'm still working with the sheriff's department. I was during the weekend and on Wednesdays doing ministry and doing police work all the rest of the week. And people would ask me, how are you able to be a preacher and a policeman, thinking that they're supposed to be conflicting vocations? And I said, well, actually, it actually helps me to be a better police officer. Well, in the meantime, while I'm still working with the sheriff's department, I leave that particular ministry for a while and I go and start my own church. I'm pastoring one church until an opportunity comes where they say, hey, we want you to come pastor our church. Now, here's that sense of humor of God's again. I accept the offer, but it's a church and a pastoral position over a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility, where all of those same people that I dealt with in the very beginning of my career, and later on after I began preaching in the park, now they're in a confined ministry where everything is taking place inside the facility that used to take place on the street that used to infuriate me. I'd go to church sometimes, and right after having a great Bible study, have to break up a fight in the parking lot. I'd have to tell them, if I have to come in here and y'all fighting in this sanctuary one more time, I'm gonna take you to jail myself. I'd pull up sometimes while I was at work to check on the ministry while I was in the patrol car in uniform. I'd pull up and my own congregation would take off running until somebody say, oh, no, it's all right. That's just pastor, y'all. That's just pastor. He cool. I go to church and people would find out, first of all, they'd see on my hip that gun, because I'm still packing now. I have to, it's the law. And they see that gun and they'd be whispering, the new people would be whispering, who is that? Like, oh, that's Pastor Morales, he's the police. And half of them would love me and the other half be mean mugging me the whole time I'm preaching. They'd be looking at me like, I don't like the law. And I'd be looking at them like, okay, yeah, I'm the preacher, but I got passed too. So we can do this one or two ways. Make it easy on yourself so I know which way to go. Right hand Bible, left hand, So anyway, I served there as a pastor for a long time. We developed some great relationships. During my ministries and policing at the same time, I told you I used to say, they need to burn this block up with fire. God spoke to me one day when I passed down some of those same streets, and he said, you remember how you used to want me to burn this place up with fire? He said, I want you to burn it up with my word. I said, are you serious? He said, I'm dead serious. And so those very streets that I used to go and have fights with and pursuits with and take crack off the streets and domestic violence and wanted to burn it up to get rid of it, Now I was called to be an agent of change. And so I would go out there on Sundays now, sometimes by myself, sometimes my wife and my kids, and I would set up a little podium and a little microphone stand, and I would preach the gospel on those streets, trying to burn it up with the word of God. And some of those same people in that housing project would come out and they would listen, and they'd even give what they could as an offering, and I looked at God and I said, wow, this is great. This is who knew?